Yeah, good morning. My name's Gary Whittle. I'm a trustee of the Rugby League Museum Society of New Zealand. And today I'm here interviewing Ken Stirling, Kiwi number 489. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning, Gary.
I'd like to talk to you about your rugby league career, but I'd rather start off with your family. You came from a very, very sporting family. Would you like to tell us about your father and your siblings?
Yes, my dad was a Kiwi 1939. They went to UK, England, played one match, and unfortunately the war broke out and they had to return home. And obviously the war took his career away from him.
Now,
My sister,
in
yes,
terms of your family, you have a sister. Would you like to tell us about her and her sporting prowess?
yeah, Glenda was a swimmer, and she represented New Zealand at Mexico Olympics. She made an Olympic Games final there, and she was only 16 when she swam in that final. 2 years later, she got a fourth place in the Commonwealth Games in Edinburgh.
Now, childhood, you grew up in Devonport.
Yes, Devonport. Yep. And
So, how did your love affair with Ellerslie start with rugby league? So you lived in Devonport.
okay, so I played at North Shore. I started North Shore as a 4-year-old and played. When I went into seniors, I was only 17 when I first went into senior football, and about 3 years after for North Shore, 3 years after I started playing senior football, North Shore were relegated to the second division. So I was looking for a first division club, and Maury Robertson was moving to Ellerslie at that stage. And Maury had watched me play beforehand and had a bit of an allegiance with Dad. And so I went to Ellerslie at that point. That was one of the best things I could have done.
So that was really your love affair with Ellerslie, wasn't it all? And that was
No, it wasn't. No, I wasn't looking to go to any other club apart from until we were relegated in North Shore.
Now, Kiwis. Your first test was 1971 at Carlaw Park against the Australians. What can you tell us about that game?
Oh, it was. The ground wasn't in the greatest of conditions, as Carlaw Park quite often wasn't. But that was a great Kiwi team. The players and the rest of the season went really well too. But it was something that you can cherish to the end of your life, to be able to be involved in a win like that over Australia. We hadn't beaten Australia for a while, and we did it fairly comprehensively that day.
Yeah, and the score probably flattered Australia. You beat them 24-3 on Carlaw Park. And that was it was an amazing day, even though it was in the mud.
It certainly was, and there was some pretty good tries scored that day. We were fortunate enough to have a very good, strong forward pack, and obviously we're a pretty complete team. And we pretty much dominated the whole game.
So as a result of that, you then toured Great Britain and France with Roy Christian's 1971 team. And that, of course, was the first New Zealand Rugby League team to ever tour Great Britain and France and win a Test series. What can you tell us about the series itself?
Oh, the English series, they had a pretty good team in those days, but we had a good side, good, well-balanced side, and a number of experienced footballers who'd been there for a while, and a good number of younger players. Dennis Williams was just coming through at that time. I was only 21 at that stage, and a number of younger guys, Bernie Lowther, coming through. But we had the experienced guys too, and Gary Willard and Roy Christian in the back line, and we had Gary Smith and Tony Krilitich, and a good number of experienced sides with a good number of young.
And been great wingers as well.
Exactly, yeah, Mocky Brereton and Philip Orchard, and Philip went on to score a record number of tries on that tour.
Yeah, he actually broke Tom Hatfield's record.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And you mentioned Dennis Williams, the first test, Dennis Williams, 18 years and 1 day old. The first time he gets the ball, he slips under a head-eye tackle and scores.
Yeah. It's amazing. It was. Yeah. I mean, he was named in the team when he was a 17-year-old. He was named to play in the Test match, and he came in because Gary Willard. Dennis was in the frame, and Gary Willard was injured, but Dennis went in and he was brilliant.
And even France, although you beat France in the series, that wasn't a cakewalk either, was it, in France?
No, it wasn't, but we were a pretty well developed team by then. You know, we were away for 3.5 months total on the tour, so we'd probably had 2 months in the UK by that stage, in fact more than that, at that stage, and a lot of games under our belt. So we were pretty well primed by the time we went to France. But as you say, they weren't a cakewalk. The French had some pretty good teams around that time.
And then, of course, you were appointed Kiwi captain in 1974.
Yes, yeah.
And your first series as captain was 1974, where we played Great Britain, and unfortunately we lost the series 2-1.
Yes.
Now, my memory was that was a very, very good English team.
It was a good English side, yes, yeah. No, they had some good players in there, and we weren't outclassed, but
no.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you moved on to the World Cup in 1975. So, what can you tell us about the World Cup in 1975?
They called that I think it was the International Championship, because we played home and away. It wasn't a tournament played in one place. We played home and away. So we toured Australia and played our one test over there that we lost, and then Australia came here. Great Britain and Wales came here, and then and France, sorry, and then we toured Great Britain, Wales, and France also at the end of that year. We had a pretty good team, but just didn't match up on the occasions we needed to.
Now, your last game at that stage was 1975. You then were injured, and you were out for 1 or 2 years?
2 years. 2 years. Yes, I'd had a number of head knocks, and my doctor was concerned about what long-term ramifications there could be with that. So I decided that I would just not play, and I coached Ellerslie through those 2 years. And anyway, in 1978, I was keen to come back, so I played again then, one season.
That was also then your last game was in 1978, where you played against Papua New Guinea.
Yes.
That was your one and only game against Papua New Guinea?
That's the only time I ever played Papua New Guinea, yes. We toured Australia first, and then went to Papua New Guinea.
Now, you spoke about Ellerslie. You were coach 1974. The last time that Ellerslie won the Fox Memorial was 1974, which is nearly 50 years ago. What can you tell us about that game? Maury Robertson came back then. Sorry, I know. I was just trying to think. Maury Robertson came back for that season, and I always say that I give Maury credit for a huge amount of my football ability. He was a wonderful coach, knew the game backwards, and he guided us through to that. We had a good side too. My cousin was in the team, Graham Smith, who if he hadn't gone to Australia, I'm sure would have made a Kiwis at a stage also. But we had Murray Eade and Lindsay Proctor and Doug Gailey. We had a really strong Ellerslie team at that time. Of course, your opposition was Ponsonby, and their forward pack, they were as good as your forward pack. They
were, yes, yeah. And in fact, in the final, I was injured. I tore the ligaments in my knee, and that's why I was not able to tour. at the end of the year World Cup, which was in UK that season.
So that was actually, I remember that game, and it was an amazing game. One of the things that I remembered about it, normally when you win the toss, you like to receive the ball. I remember this particular game, Roger Bailey won the toss, and he wanted to kick it to you guys, so his forwards could take your forwards on and find out who the best forward pack was. And that the first 10 minutes of that game was amazing because of that.
Yeah, they were two massive packs. They really were. When you went through them both, and they had Donny Mann and a number of top guys in their team, and we had much the same. You know, our pack was. I think I used to work out there was, if Ellerslie played Ponsonby, there was 8 or 9 Kiwis on the field at once, and they were packed just the same as we were. So, and the packs were really got into each other.
Now, following on, you then went and were involved with Hibiscus Coast at their very beginning, weren't you?
Yes. I happened to be down at the local pub, and a guy I knew had known for a while. He said that, we were thinking about starting a club up here, you know, and would you like to be involved? And I said, and I was quite busy at work at the time, and I said, I'll do as much as I can to help, but I don't think, you know, I couldn't go on the committee or anything like that. But he said, well, there's a meeting next week if you'd like to come down. So I came down to it, and I was the first one on the committee. and it was, we had a really good committee then, very hard working. We were really only ever going to focus on junior, schoolboy and younger footballers, and the club's just grown from there and carried on, and it's still a very strongly focused on juniors. And
I understand you still go down and watch them periodically.
Yes, I do occasionally. Yes, I'm actually patron of the club still. So I'd been chairman for a few years there, but you know, they're going pretty well. They didn't quite make the Fox this year, but
Now back to your New Zealand Rugby League career. You then became involved in administration of New Zealand Rugby League. You're a board member for some time.
Yes, George Rainey actually rang me after I'd been involved with the Hibiscus Coast for a while, and said, you know, would I be interested in putting my name forward for the New Zealand Rugby League board. So I did that, and the first year I wasn't elected, but the second year I was elected onto the board, and was there for two periods of 4 years, so I did about 8 years altogether on the New Zealand Rugby League.
You were also a selector, weren't you?
No, I was a convener of selectors. Yes, and I purposely didn't want to be a selector because I wasn't actually getting around to all the games. So I did what I felt was a convener's role, and let the selectors do their work, and if needed, then I would maybe cast a vote or try and convince them which one way or the other which they should go.
So you've had all your life, really, you've been involved in rugby league, and you're still involved in rugby league. So you've had a pretty good life in terms of rugby league football.
I sure have. Yeah, I can't complain, and I wouldn't go back on anything I've done in that time because I've had a marvellous life with rugby league.
So just to finish it off, I have your list of tests here, and you actually ended up playing 22 tests for New Zealand, which is a lot of tests in anybody's language.
Yes, well, we didn't play a lot of tests through that period of time either, so yeah, I'm pretty proud of that.
And that was a period from 1971 to 1978, and obviously without your injuries, you may have played more tests.
Yes.
Well, I just want to get back to something we spoke to beforehand. You can explain this. You were captain of the Kiwis, but you never captained Auckland in that period.
No, different selectors, I guess. The Auckland selectors obviously didn't see me as a captain. So anyway, I was didn't ever worry me. I was quite happy to be just a player.
Dennis Williams was the captain in those days, wasn't he?
Yes,
But
yeah.
funny, talking about that, I interviewed Derek Carson some time ago, and when you go back to that period, the late 50s, early 60s, it became with selections where you could actually be a Kiwi, but you were never ever good enough to play for Auckland. Do you remember that?
Well, Auckland was pretty strong in those days. They were, and there was I guess you're always going to get some people who've got a different view to others, and that's what it's all about, I guess. Yeah.
But you've obviously made a lot of friendships over the years with your Kiwi mates and your Ellerslie mates.
I certainly have. Yeah. And even all players that I've played against internationally, and that you come up against, or not against them, but meet up with them at different times, and we have some wonderful laughs about things that happened.
Yeah, sure you do.
On the field.
Well, Ken, thank you very much for coming down today. That's been a real intriguing insight into your rugby league career. Thank you very much for taking the time today.
Thank you for having me.